Hello, welcome to Generally Speaking. Today is Thursday, June 4th. I'd like to start this with a little story I heard about human nature and human beings and how we behave. It's a story of two wolves. The wolves represent spirits inside of us, how we go about our lives. One wolf is motivated by greed, jealousy, anger. The other wolf motivated by kindness, generosity, compassion. These two wolves inside of us compete eternally, never ending, never ceasing. The question is, which one wins? And the answer is the one that you feed. Great story. All right, so let's go back to real world events. Let's talk about the terrorist state of Israel. And it is a terrorist state. They murder and torture every country around them. And this evil state has spread its poison into the United States and into the United Kingdom. The United States recently had an Israel Day celebration. It was attended by so many members of Congress, both Republican and Democrat. We support their military. We support them bombing all the civilians, all the torture that they commit. This poison has infested this country and the United Kingdom. Just another example of how it's gone, far it's gone into the United Kingdom. Two journalists who are very popular, very well known in the internet, not in mainstream media at all. Mainstream media is very superficial, has very few stories, nothing as in-depth as what you get on the internet. And these two journalists, Hassan Piker and Cenk Uygur, had their visitation rights to the United Kingdom revoked. They are banned from traveling to the United Kingdom. Why? Because they dare to criticize Israel. This is the horror that things have come to. Maybe we're always there under the surface, and it took this Gaza war to bring it more out visibly to the top. Speaking about corruption and evilness that is in our government, we have the terror in chief, the president, who recently sued the country, sued his own government over a leak of his tax information during his first administration. Someone leaked bunches of people's information, his was included, and now he wants to sue to get money for it, but he dropped the suit in exchange for a settlement. A settlement that was made behind closed doors, wasn't following any kind of normal process, in which a slush fund would be presented to the president to be used ostensibly to give to whoever he wants. Namely, they were saying people like the January Sixers, who he believes were mistreated. But this money actually could go anywhere, and I think in the end would most likely go to whoever his political allies he wants to throw favor on, and I'm sure the majority of it into his own pocket, along with stipulations that no one can say anything about where this money goes, how it's handled, when it's handled, where it is, and on top of that, that neither Trump nor his family can be investigated for their financial affairs. Suddenly they're immune from the tax services knowing anything about their income. This is the horror story we have for the current administration. Speaking more of the horrors, the Department of Justice has been totally corrupted by the Trump administration, putting in lackeys that will just do whatever the Trump administration wants. There's no independent Department of Justice. They've been prosecuting people left and right just at the president's say-so, not because there's any evidence or any reason that would spark an investigation. And so many of these cases are just being thrown out for what's known as vindictive prosecution, that the cases were obviously brought just because someone didn't like the person they were going after. And the one who was most recently freed because of vindictive prosecution, Abrego Garcia, a person who's been in the news for years now. He was deported to El Salvador. The court said he had to be brought back, but the administration kept trying to charge him with whatever they could to lock him up. Finally, he's been totally set free. the judge is saying this is all just a bunch of vindictive prosecution. All right. So what else? We got in another story. There's a drought going on in the country, in many parts of the country. And meanwhile, some Canadian entrepreneur wants to build a 40,000-acre data center in Utah, which is a place where there's a lot of drought going on. And these data centers are notorious for sucking up even more water. Will that happen or not? Depends, how bad the corruption is. Oh, speaking of law about corruption, we've got these detention centers popping up all around the country. Concentration camps are being called because we're taking people without any due process, just taking them and throwing them into these detention centers with horrible conditions. And they won't allow U.S. congressional representatives to enter and to see them. They have to fight in order to get in. And the conditions are horrible. They don't get any medical treatment. The food is filled with maggots. They hardly get any food. And there is no access to them. This is another actions of this horrible government that we have. All right. In the Netherlands, they blocked a U.S. corporation from acquiring a Dutch cloud service company. And this company would have a lot of information about people's personal information, social security numbers, address, and such as this. And the Dutch have decided that because of United States laws, which says this information can be disseminated to anybody and everybody, under the right circumstances, which almost means just for almost any reason, they decide, you know what, we don't want to allow our people's personal information to just be so widely available. And of course, the company complained and said, the Netherlands just cowered to political pressures. Political pressures, yeah. It was the people's will. They had a referendum that they didn't want it. They complained about it left and right. And the parliament said, no, we're not going to go along with that. All right. So, story I was just reading about Grenada, like one of the smallest countries in the Western Hemisphere. They had fought to free themselves from colonialism, and they were trying to do the socialist story in the good way, where there's free schooling, land is distributed more freely, people can own the land more. The corporations that are trying to mine or take the natural resources no longer can. And so what happened? They got invaded by the U.S. Back when Reagan was the president. Again, the terrorist United States. All right, Hawaii. Hawaii has finally hooked into this idea of how to fight back against Citizens United judgment. The Supreme Court passed saying that corporations are like people and they can spend money in campaign funds. It's a matter of free speech. Of course, corporations are never people to the point where they get prosecuted, but they're corporations to the sense that they can now contribute billions of dollars to politicians. But Hawaii said, you know what? Corporations are incorporated in the state with the conditions that the state gives them. And so Hawaii says, we no longer give you the ability to spend on political campaigns. So Minnesota is now going to try to follow that steps. Let's hope that gets passed. I mean, we still got even, private people with billions of dollars. So there's still a lot of money in politics, but at least that's one element that might be cut short. China has invented a new cable technology called GPMI. This is one cable to replace them all, as they say. There are so many different kinds of cables, different kinds of USB ports, different kinds of TV cables, computer cables, audio cables. This cable will replace everything. It's got all the high speed, all the capacity for every kind of signal. Will it catch on? Remains to be seen. You know how people that aren't invested in that try to fight it left and right. But hopefully that'll take place. Idaho has set private land to be inviolable. Now, you would think private land is inviolable. In other words, the authorities can't just come traipsing across it. Well, your rights as a property owner have been increasingly whittled away in this country, where yeah, off officials can come onto your property. They can't come onto your porch so much, or in certainly not into your house. They don't have any rights for that. But they do to come on your land. Well, now Idaho has made it that they can not. All right, a new alert. You've heard of an Amber Alert. Now there is an Athena Alert. And what's that? The Amber Alert is, of course, a child's been abducted, but it's got restrictions. You can't do an Amber Alert unless it's, after a certain amount of time has gone by to be sure that a child actually has been abducted. And so this Athena Alert, which I don't know which state that happened, it now allows for the alert to process immediately, which is a good thing. So suppose the kid just wandered off and he's just around the corner. Yeah, okay, you made this alert for nothing. Better an alert for nothing than an alert that might have actually happened and you did nothing about it. All right, volcano snails. Volcano snails, what are those? Well, under the ocean there are volcanoes, and this one kind of snail lives in that temperature. These boiling hot waters that you might use for cooking something in, these snails would just have a swim time there, just the way I like it. Well, these guys live there and they don't eat. They don't eat because they just absorb minerals from the water, and one of their favorite minerals is iron. These volcano snails, their shells are made literally out of iron. You try to hit it, it's iron. Nature is just an amazing thing. And speaking of amazing, down in the little small size, we've got planaria worms. If they are flatworms, they are literally immortal. They will live forever. I mean, you can kill them, but if life goes fine, nobody's killing them, they will live forever. And they're really interesting critters because you can cut them in half, and the two halves will grow new planaria worms. In fact, one person cut them into 12 pieces, and each 12 pieces grew into a new worm. Nature is just amazing. All right, here's a little sentence I was reading. It was a comment on some story, and the sentence in itself, it was just really true. It's those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. And of course, this was a religious article commenting on how some people are twisted into believing anything, and that when you are capable of that, you're capable of being convinced to do anything. All right, the National Defense Act comes around every year, and it's been proposed now to merge the U.S. and the militaries of Israel, the U.S. and the Israeli militaries, to be intertwined, which is not a good thing. But this is how much the Israelis have seeped into the American uh, um, system. So it's like the United States of Israel at this point. All right, the Department of Justice is going after E. Jean Carroll, who sued Trump for rape and was vindicated on two separate occasions. And now talking about vindictive prosecutions, Trump is trying to say, well, let me see how much I can harass her. I'll go after her and sue her. And of course, this is just going to end in another vindictive prosecution case. And these lawyers, I don't know what they're thinking, because they get fired, they get disbarred when they do such obviously unethical things. All right, another Texas courthouse tries to put up the Ten Commandments monument. So, what is with these states with the Texas with the Ten Commandments and monuments? Why can't they get the story? You're not allowed to do this. Just don't do it. It's if you had some great benefit from doing it, I might see it, but you get absolutely nothing except people are going to sue you for it, and you're going to end up taking it down. So what is on their minds? I think that line I was talking about. People can be convinced to do anything. These people, they are, there's a word for it, mentally rotten inside, where they are just firebrands. I'm going to do this, and I don't care whether you like it or not. I don't care how crazy it is. They're going to push it through. People who are mental, and a lot of people on this planet are mental. Too many, I would say. Okay, the last thing. I was watching something on deer antlers that if you put a little notch in a deer antler, it will heal itself. A little bump will grow there. But what's amazing is that when these deer shed these antlers, because they do every now and then, and their new antlers grow back, a new horn will grow at the same place where the cut was made on the previous horn. That is absolutely insane. Like, how does a new horn know where the old horn had an injury? I don't know. Nature is amazing. So there we go. There's all the stuff for the latest and greatest. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you come looking for Generally Speaking again. Please leave a comment. I'd love to have comments, and of course a like, subscribe, and notify. I should have said that at the beginning. Anyway, you all take care.